Hello, Old Nile here, and I'm thinking of starting a special project, and I believe it might need some sort of introduction. Now, I'm not sure if you have heard of the game The Neverhood. I wouldn't be surprised if you haven't, for multiple reasons. One, it goes back a while. I mean, it was published in 1996 by DreamWorks Interactive, and well, the special thing about it, well, first of all, it was a point and click game. That's not special by itself. I mean, there have been many point and clicks before the Neverhood. But the special thing about it was that it was a claymation game. Basically, the Neverhood Inc., the guys who made the game, created all the structures, all the scenes, all the animations of the game out of clay. There's a pretty great behind-the-scenes video inside the game as well. You can probably look it up on YouTube too. So it's pretty stunning just to see how much clay they have used and how much detail they actually put into making a whole world out of clay. So yeah, the Neverhood. That's basically it. It's a pretty charming game, I would say. I mean, I got that game as a gift when I was like 12 or 13, so roughly 15 years ago. That was quite a while. And the Neverhood wasn't the introduction. For me, it wasn't the introduction to point-and-click point-and-click adventure games, because, well, before that I have played Woodruff and the Schnibble of Azimuth, which is, well, that's how it started, the whole genre for me, and up to this day I still like thinking back of all the goofy scenes and the voice work that was done by Cocktail Vision and published by Sierra. It's kind of like a spiritual successor of the Goblins games, but it's a totally different world. But the art style is just, so to say, blatantly similar, I guess. So yeah, that was the first one, and after that came the Neverhood for me. So the whole concept of just a side-scrolling sort of situation where you click on items and solve various problems or puzzles depending on the situation and on the game. That wasn't new to me, but the world itself of the Neverhood was pretty stunning, like I said, because of the whole clay thing. And well, simply, it's just it was a goofy world. It was weird, pretty unpopulated. I mean, you basically start with this guy called Clayman waking up in a room with a lever on the wall, a closed door, a giant mallet rigged above the door, and a closed window with a button next to it. So that's how the game starts. So not much of an introduction, but you find out things as you progress through the game. It has an entertaining story. Basically, well, you make the story yourself as you progress through the different sort of puzzles and finding items. So yeah, it was a good point-and-click game. It was still one of those games where you probably, unless you had like photographic memory, so one of those games where you had to jot down some pieces of information every now and then, because you would need them like hours later at some other part of the game area. So yeah, one of those games, but it was good fun. And it is also one of those games where I would watch the different cutscenes so many times. I mean, another example would be the Oddworld games, first two of them at any rate. I mean, that's one of the examples, but the Neverhood was the other one. It's just the animations are really great. The Battle of Big Robot Bill, like one of the the most important the events, the most dramatic events of the game. That was it. It's like a giant robot with you inside it. It's a cutscene, so you don't actually get to control a robot, but it's the next best thing, and it's humorous, the game itself and the scene, obviously, but the whole game is just humorous. It has charm. It has a really good soundtrack. It's a good package, but despite all that, it didn't sell really well. It had like I think it was roughly above 50,000 copies sold in retail. So that's not that impressive, but despite that, the reception was pretty good. I mean, the soundtrack for one was widely recognized as good, and the whole project of creating a claymation game was unique. But yeah, the sales weren't that good. But despite that, there is still some sort of cult following, I suppose you can call it. It has a strong fan base. People make comics, and recently, like a year ago, there was also I guess a spiritual successor again to the Neverhood, which was called Army Krog. Well, I say a successor, but there have been other games which followed the Neverhood. Skull Monkeys was one, which is more or less connected. I mean, Clayman is featured in it. The antagonist, Clog, is still there, and the problem with that one is that it's became like a side scroller, maybe a platformer mostly, and a bit of an action going on there. But it still has the cutscenes, and the good music is still good in Skull Monkeys. I haven't played it; it's a PlayStation game, so I haven't really touched it. But I have listened to the music, so it's still good. So yeah, so there was Army Krog, and I'm not sure about the sales of that, but I know it was a Kickstarter project, and well, the result is pretty good. The style is still there, but I would assume, it would be interesting for those people who were into the Neverhood or to begin with. So yeah, that's basically my history with the Neverhood, and like a little introduction to what the game is actually about and what it is and why is it special. Now, the project that I mentioned at the start of this video is connected to a special area of the, I guess unique area of the game, which it is called the Hall of Records. Now, it is a section of the game that you can access pretty early on, pretty much in the first 15 minutes of the game, and well, it is a really long line of rooms. Well, so I mean, it is a side-scroller game, pretty much like the classic Oddworld games, where you would go through a screen and the next screen would scroll over. Classic. So you would only see a section of the hallway at a time. That's what I'm trying to say here. And this is pretty much why. This is pretty much I guess you can say, the most notorious part of the game, because, as I said, it is a hallway. It's a really long hallway, and the only reason why you have to go through it is because there is an item at the very end that you need to pick up in order to beat the game. And going through the wall of the hallway takes roughly, let's say, 5 minutes, and another 5 minutes back. There is no, quick travel at the very end. That they weren't that generous about it. So you have to walk there and back. And I can remember that basically when I had to do that on the second and third playthrough, I mean, I have played the game through a couple of times, I basically just zone out and I just keep clicking at the, on the first the right side of the screen and then the left side on the way back, and basically I enter a trance of, Clayman's, the protagonist, Clayman's thudding footsteps, just that's on repeat for like 5 minutes. So, and all of that because of, having to pick up that final item, a cassette that you have to watch in order to get another item, but let's not get into that. But the special thing about this room, or series of room, the Hall of Records, is that as you go through this hallway, there is a bunch of text on the wall. I mean, it is called the Hall of Records, no big surprise there. And you can actually read all of that. I guess I had a look when I first realized this, when I first played the game, but for one, I didn't really care about that much, and I guess I wasn't patient enough to, start reading a bunch of text when I was going to, play video games. I mean, reading is a different matter entirely. And there's a lot of text there that is sort of establishes the mythology, so to say, of the world of the Neverhood. It's kind of like a creation story of sorts. Recently I had a look at it. I actually found an online version of that, and it is pretty interesting, actually. I mean, there's just whole sections of texts which are, some of it is connected to the Neverhood, and some of it is kind of exists as a story on its own, but I guess I haven't read all of it, but I guess these stories will, follow each other logically. So yeah, I'm kind of interested to explore all of that, all of this text about, the different, myths about the Neverhood. And I decided that maybe I could turn it into like an audiobook style read of the, the whole Hall of Records texts. So basically that is the project that I'm thinking of. I always enjoyed, reading text out. I mean, I never really thought about getting into voice acting. My voice isn't that golden, so to say, but I always like doing that. Sometimes I even when I read a book, I try to imagine how would I say this, or what tone would I use, stuff like that. Maybe there's some sort of a actor strain hidden inside of me or something. But so yeah, think of it as sort of an experiment as well on my behalf, and I suppose if people are interested in, the text of the Hall of Records from the Neverhood, I guess this could be valuable to them. It is not unique. I have found a couple of other such, call it a project, on YouTube. A couple of people have already read the whole Hall of Records stuff in their videos. Each of them is a bit different. I think I had a look at 2 of them, or listened to a couple of them. I found 2 so far. Each of them is a bit different in some way, and I decided that, YouTube isn't that saturated with, readouts of the Hall of Records, surprising as it might be. I guess it's sort of an obscure part of an obscure game. But I still think that I should go have an attempt to it. Kind of like a tribute to an old favorite of mine. I think it deserves the attention, because I still like going back to the Neverhood every now and then, even if it's just, rewatching that scene of the Battle of Big Robot Bill, for instance. So yeah, that's the plan. So if this series of me reading out the Hall of Records and this introduction to the Neverhood got your interest about the Neverhood, well, I guess that's a success. point for me. I'm not sure where you can actually pick up the Neverhood nowadays. I'm not entirely certain it's available on GOG, but I would imagine that if there is a place where you can buy it, that would be there. And if not, people should, vote the game up, and that way GOG realizes that maybe we should create a GOG version of this game, because that's how they usually do it. I know that Army Croc is available there, so it would be logical that they made a GOG version of the Neverhood too. But yeah, it is an old game. But if you have troubles with running a retail version, because you might have one and you're just not capable of doing it, actually running the game on a modern PC system, you can actually use ScumVM to run it, because there was an update some time ago that makes ScumVM compatible with the Neverhood, so you can actually run the game that way too. So yeah, that's basically the introduction. I suppose we will, not see each other, but mostly you hear me as I read through the wall of Hall of Records. Hopefully wall, knock on wood. We'll see where it goes. It will be certainly interesting. This has been All Nile, and welcome to the Neverhood.